Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You were very cooperative this afternoon about settling down. But you know, children, as they get to know one another, have such a good time with each other that they take a little longer settling down. So we are understanding. So welcome and welcome again. And it's a great evening that we have planned for you all. And before getting into the details, I just want to thank our sponsors, the people who help make this event possible, principally the Stand Together Trust, the network of donors who support reform in so many places, and probably some of you know about the work of Stand Together Trust, and certainly we are grateful for their substantial contribution to the support of this event and our program more generally. And we are also grateful to the American Federation of Children for their support, and to EdChoice for their support, and together these organizations help us to open up the doors of the Harvard Kennedy School, and I hope you enjoyed your afternoon there and are looking forward to the morning. Well, I also want to thank again the staff of the Program on Education Policy and Governance. I could express my thanks to each and every one of them, but I will just express thanks to Antonio Wentland. Is Antonio here? Yes. There he is. So. You know, he was almost from the very beginning of our program. Back in 1995, he was there, and it's been a long journey together, and he's getting sick and tired of it. But I love it better every year, so thank you, Antonio. Now, our speakers this evening are Jeff and Janine Yass. They have contributed nearly $50 million to advancing educational innovation and reform. And they are a marvelous team. Janine is a long-time education reform advocate who has worked to champion school choice, charter schools, innovative school models. And Jeff is an investor and a philanthropist who has supported education reform over the years. Though I think he says that he defers to his wife on all important matters, as I do, right? It's a wise thing to do. So together they launched the Yass Prize, often called the Pulitzer Prize for Education Innovation. And the prize has provided financial support to over 200 education providers, impacting over 14 million students. I bet you there's some winners of Yass prizes in the room tonight. Can they stand up? Can we? Well, congratulations to all of you. And, you know, let me just list the top winners over the last 4 years. I hear there's a new award about to be announced this coming month, and I'm sure a lot of you are excited to anticipate what that decision is going to be. In 2021, the Discovery Center of Springfield Missouri won the award, then the Arizona Autism Charter Schools. I must say one thing about this. Carol and I, my wife Carol and I have a son who is autistic, very seriously autistic, not just on the spectrum, but almost the classical case. And this has been the guiding light to our life in many ways and explains in good part our commitment to the school choice movement, because we began to see just how important it was. But moving on, the Valiant Cross Academy, an all-boys Christian school in Montgomery, and Primer Micro Schools, which is located in Florida. So there are many more deserving institutions, but these are honored by the Yass Prize. So tonight, I'm going to ask Daniel Hamlin to lead the discussion with the Yasses, and they have kindly agreed to a few questions at the end, so think over what it is that you desperately want to know. You are not allowed to ask one question. You can't say, who's going to win the prize? That's not allowed, but short of that, you should ponder what you want to pose. So I'll turn it over to Daniel now. Daniel?
All right, thank you, Paul, and thank you so much to the Yasses for being here. I know travel these days is not easy. We lost several attendees over the past couple of days who just got stuck or had flights canceled, so I'm just delighted that you're here. I thought that we might start with Janine, and if you could, many in the audience, of course, are familiar with the Yass Prize, but if you could maybe take us back. What originally inspired you to launch the Yass Prize, and maybe tell us a little bit about that story?
So the Yass Prize started during the first year of COVID. Jeff and I were a little overwhelmed, like everyone in this room and everyone around the country, especially what was going on in education. We were sort of operating in this like triage mode, like, oh my gosh, what should we do? The first thing we did was supply more Chromebooks to the kids in Philadelphia. That, you know, the schools were shut, and we thought, okay, we have to keep this learning going. We were getting requests from a lot of people in Philly, New York, the East Coast schools that we were already involved with, but also all around the country. It was just so depressing. When I went to visit the after-school programs and the spaces we were renting for the kids using the Chromebooks, we just thought, oh, that's the solution. I walked through a few days, and there was no learning going on. It's one of those things where a lot of people in this room probably, you know right away when you visit a school or a center like this whether or not learning is really happening. And it was clear that nothing was coming across. There was no content coming across these Chromebooks. Some kids were coming in with like little mimeograph sheets that I had back in the 60s from their homeroom teacher doing that work. And it just seemed like this cannot be happening in the year, in this day and age, that the kids were just, there was nowhere to turn. So it wasn't really a time for us to step back and really review what we were doing with our philanthropy. We felt involved with certain cities, especially in Pennsylvania and New York, but it was time for us to look back because it was sort of overwhelming. And I got on the phone with my colleague, Jeannie Allen here, who a lot of you know in this room from Center for Education and Reform, and I had the honor of being on her board for a number of years and learned so much from her and her colleagues. And we were working, trying to do education reform, like on a national level. What should we do? What should we do? And I said, Jeannie, why don't we take what needs to be done in education reform, these 4 or 5 pillars that we work for, and a lot of reform people work toward, and distill that in our philanthropy. So we had conditions for our grants going forward. We were able to streamline, requests, say this did not fit these certain pillars, which originally we called the STOP principles, and then we renamed it the Yass Prize because Jeff just wanted his name out there. But I don't know how much you are familiar with this. The STOP principles stood for sustainability, transformational schools, outstanding operators, and they had to be permissionless. Because over the 20 years before that, quite frankly, we realized we wasted a lot of time applying for charters, waiting for schools to start, only to be denied from school districts after 3 or 4 years fighting for these rights and spending lots of money filling out the applications. A lot of wasted time and money, unfortunately, for the children, not for us, but we were very dismayed by a lot of those efforts. So the first principle of sustainability really brought this all together for us, because we realized that our philanthropy was, it could be increased, 100-fold by us doing seed money to schools that were in positions to get funds from the state and local governments to then take on the funding of these schools. After we initially seeded them to start them, they needed the startup money. So we could go into one school, have them double their charter schools, double their amount of students, let them come in and get the state funding, and then we could step out and do that 20 more times around the country. So that was the piece that really made a lot of sense to us, that we could really do that in 100 times from what we were doing just with our private philanthropy, starting one-off schools everywhere. And it also spoke with how education had not caught up with technology, and it became clear during COVID that none of these programs were in the hands of kids when their schools closed. So we really looked at schools and applications that had that transformational element to them, that we know when you visit these schools, the second-year winner was the Arizona Autism Schools. That school had kids on all different ends of the spectrum, from kids that were with the goal of them all graduating and having sustainable jobs and wages, from kids working in their cafe, happy in the community, loving to support those children with their cafe efforts, to one point where the other end, there was a child, I think he was in 8th grade, he programmed a drone around this big auditorium to deliver a little package to me. I mean, he was brilliant, but he was on the spectrum. And just spending time with people like that, Diana Diaz, who has gone on with our money to increase, I think, double the increase of the number of her students and quadruple the number of her schools in Arizona. And to have these models in these states where the governors could then point to say, I think this is worth funding in the future with the state money that's already in the system, not just trying to reinvent the wheel with philanthropy, and having people in these communities don't have to be beholden to philanthropists the rest of their being. The money is there, it belongs to the children, and we just try to get the ball rolling with that. So it was just that's what came together during COVID, and that's how we started the prize.
Great. And when you look back on the awardees, I mean, you've had a number of really interesting awardees over the years. What do you see as the primary impact of the prize over time? What do you see as having the greatest effect? And just seeing a lot of the awardees that you've had over the years, are there anywhere you look at how they do school and think, you couldn't possibly do school that way, but they ended up being able to be successful? Were there any kind of interesting stories like that along the way?
There's so many interesting providers that we're able to support. There's a few that come to mind that, also during COVID, when we visited schools in Miami, an operator by Academica, a great charter organization in Florida and actually around the world, the schools were shut, and he had this technology where they called it an owl. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the owl in the classroom. That's the first time I saw it, where they were teaching kids that one kid was in the hospital and the kids were in the same classroom at the same time. And that kind of use of technology and not letting the kids stop learning during that. And it continues with children that have to be hospitalized, or children that can't go to school, children that are afraid to go to school. They're involved with this, daily going forward.
Yeah.
And again, like the curriculums for Arizona Autism, the curriculum at Sail Future in Florida, where he took kids that had dropped out with drug and alcohol problems, brought them back into this beautiful campus in St. Petersburg, and they all graduate in 3 or 4 years with certifications for building and building sailboats, reconstructing houses, working in food service, and they love school. It saves their lives, especially that segment.
Yeah. Well, let me pivot to Jeff, and I know, Jeff, you've been intimately involved in education reform efforts for some time, and tomorrow morning we have a panel of 4 legislators who are going to talk about state education policy. Thinking about states right now, how do you think states should be thinking about taking advantage of the moment right now to promote educational innovation, especially those states that have just enacted universal school choice programs? What should they be doing?
Well, thank you, Dan. They should be fighting as hard as they can to have the money follow the child. The whole idea of the program is the school system has doubled the amount of money that they spend in inflation-adjusted terms over the last 25 or 30 years. The results have gotten worse. So we can reduce spending in half by giving it to the private sector or to charter schools or to parochial schools or to home schools or to micro schools, and we would get better results. So we spend $800 billion in the United States in K through 12. We used to spend $400 billion, and the results are worse. So no one in their right mind can possibly justify this system. What 25 states we're up to now, almost 25 states, have some form of educational savings account where the money can follow the child. And the biggest win obviously was in Texas. We got $1 billion through in Texas, and it was a vicious fight in Texas, to say the least. But we got it through with a lot of political help. And now the ECCA, the Educational Children's Choice Act, enables you to donate $1,700 tax-free. If you're going to pay $1,700 in taxes, you'll be able to check a box a year from today and send that money to an education scholarship organization. So there are millions of people who will donate that $1,700. We hope that it gets to the tens of billions of dollars that can go to school choice movements, that the money can follow the kids. If you think of someone trying to start a micro school, 5 parents getting together with 5 kids, if they had $75,000, $15,000 a kid, they can easily do it, and between ESAs and this ECCA, we think we can do it. So we think the entire educational landscape can be transformed, and it's just one basic principle that Milton Friedman said. It's almost 70 years ago. It's hard to believe, but it was almost 70 years ago when he said the money should follow the child. So the role for the federal government or for the states or the cities, mainly the states and the cities, like you provide the funds, but there's absolutely no reason why you run the schools. We may give out food stamps. The government doesn't control the farms. We'd all starve to death, obviously, if they did. So why does the government control the schools? They can provide the funds. They tax people, and they, give the money out, but they should not be running it. And that's the revolution that we think we're on the verge of doing between the ECCA and the great movements around the states. We got lucky. Milton Friedman always said, if you want to change the world, there's these great ideas laying around. They don't do anything for decades, and then all of a sudden you get lucky, and these ideas come out. So between, COVID, as horrible as it was, one of the things is the benefits was the parents got to see how dysfunctional the school system was, and then the cultural wars and that helped, and now the horrible test scores. So we've had the trifecta, and we have finally the political will where there can be absolutely no argument against letting the money follow the child. And one of the things that we really try and bring out is, okay, everything is horrible, but people don't realize, and this includes a lot of people who should know, that we've doubled the amount of money. It's not just like things are horrible. we're spending the same amount of money. It's not working. We're spending twice as much money as we used to. So that means that the people in this room and the people who win the Yass Prize, I try and focus on the demand. There are tens of millions of kids who want to escape their horrible, miserable schools, and they want it, and they want a choice. So that's what I focus on, the demand. That's basically a political process where, I make a lot of enemies, to say the least. And Janine focuses more on the supply. It's like, okay, there's 20 million kids that want to leave the schools. Where are they going? The stores aren't open. So the Yass Prize is to reward the entrepreneurs who can have a great concept, who know how to do it, and they can do it in gigantic scale so that these kids have a place to go. So I'm the demand, she's the supply.
Okay. Speaking to that a little bit, so our theme for the conference is Scaling for Success. And beyond just the funding, a lot of the innovative models that we see here at the conference are often quite small, often some form of personalized learning or self-directed learning, and often led by a highly competent, highly enthusiastic leader. So can these models really be brought to scale with that?
I'm very confident they can. I'm hopeful they can. But you can take someone like that and combine them with an entrepreneur. Maybe that person is really just an educator, not really thinking in business terms. And then you find businessmen and say, oh, well, you know how to, this is what we need. You do it with 10 kids. I can do it with 10,000 because the system works, because it works. And then it just expands exponentially. So we need the ideas, and we need the entrepreneurs who take it to a brand new level. And when you look back, I mean, if we were starting, the argument we like to make is if you're starting, this is the situation we're in right now. The government controls the education system. 90% of the kids go to government schools. Milton Friedman said, don't call them public schools. They're not public schools. This is not a public library where anybody can go. This is run by the government. 90% are in government schools. They try to squash all competition that is possible. Not only do they want every single kid, they do not want anybody else to compete with them. So that's our system. Could you imagine saying, if we were starting a new country or a new place, and say, I have an idea. Let's give the government a complete monopoly over this. We'll give it to the strongest labor union in the history of the world, and we will not allow any competition. And if they don't like the wages and if we can't agree on the wages we pay them, they'll go on strike, and parents' lives will be completely disrupted. That's what we're going to do, because we think that's the plan. That is the plan right now. And I think we can do a tad better than that, So it is just status quo. This is how it was. Everybody went to a labor union school. My parents went, I went, and you just don't even know your official who's saying what water. You don't even know that this is a corrupt government program that has just made tens of millions of kids miserable and hopeless. And the solution is, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the entrepreneurs are going to do. I never do, but I know I want to give them the chance. And if we have the money following the children, they will get the chance. And what wonderful things happen, is beyond my imagination, but I know they have to be given a chance.
Yeah. Well, this is for both of you, because you both have been in this for some time now, and I'm wondering, are there any...
Well, we're only 30 years old.
You're only 30. Okay, so you're slightly younger than me. Are there any hard lessons that you've learned, any disappointments, anything you could share with us that would be maybe a good lesson that you've learned for the people in the room here?
Just before I answer that, I just wanted to follow up on what Jeff was saying too. It's not only the system is not set up for how kids want to learn. Like, we have 4 children. All the years they were in schools, they were in like private schools even. It would be like, it was boring. It was, school should be fun. There was all this technology going on. The micro schools and the personalized learning is how kids want to learn, and they do much better with that. So the fact that we're able to provide that for operators like KaiPod and a lot of our and Kenesha here, that model like hoisting, what's in demand. When we get applications every year, you could almost see certain trends of what's going on in the world. There's a lot of people that are with micro schools with their applications. That second year we had the autism schools. There were a lot of kids, I mean, the increase in autism. So we could take cues from the number, the structure of our applications and how kids want to learn.
I want to follow up on that. The general conversation always, generally trends towards what are the NAEP scores? How many kids are on grade level? How many kids, can pass? China is, kids are learning calculus in 6th grade. There's 12 Americans that can do calculus. So, what are we going to do about that? And, that is really not my focus. The major focus is the kids are miserable. School is miserable. It's like I go to the dentist. It was miserable. There's no choice. They gotta do what they gotta do, and it's miserable. We all accept the fact that school is, for the most part, for most kids, miserable, and that doesn't have to be that way. The kids could be happy. They can learn what they do in 7 hours now, in an hour or 2 hours, and they can play, and they can be happy, and it could be customized to them. This is what you like. You're a math kid. I'm not teaching you art. You're an art kid. You're not grinding out trigonometry. There's no point in that. We're gonna make it happy for you. We're gonna treat the kid and the parents like a customer, not like as a captured a slave who can't leave. And once kids get treated like customers, they will be happy and they will thrive. There hasn't been that system, in America, since 1850. There really is no place in the world where it really gets treated like that. So America's not really an outlier, unfortunately. It's pretty much, a worldwide horror, and that's what we're trying to break. You can't prove a kid is happy. There's no test, are you happy or not? But the proof to us is, like you would ask, how do you measure success? I would say a waiting line. If there's a waiting list and kids want to go to that school, then I know they're happy, I know they're safe, and I know the parents care enough about them that they're getting a reasonable education. And if there's a waiting list, then that school is working, and I want to give that school money, and I want that school to have an opportunity to get as many customers as they have. It would be like if you asked me, what's a good restaurant? It's like, well, this restaurant has, you can't get a reservation. I don't particularly like the food, but there must be something about it. So that's it. I want the schools to be the measure of success is how many kids want to go there, not what is your zip code, which it is right now.
Yeah, this has been a recurring question at our conference. How do we measure impact? And it sounds like for you, it's a mix of are the kids happy, and is there a waiting list? Are enrollment strong? But from let's say a taxpayer perspective, and you think about education savings accounts or universal choice programs, shouldn't the kids at least have to demonstrate some kind of baseline academic ability?
I would say no.
Yeah.
No, I think the parents, the parents will take care of it. The parents care about the kids, and it's like if they can't read and write, they'll worry about it. I think those tests, in Baltimore, there are like 8 schools where there are 0 kids in the last 20 years, 0 in the last 20 years who are on grade level. Okay, so there's tens of thousands of kids, 0 on grade level. That school has not been shut down. So the left would say there's accountability, but they come in, they test them. Okay, 100% fail for the last 20 years. Let's give you some more money, right? That's their net method of accountability. I would trust the parents to do it. What we consider to be an educated person is so completely different. What I consider to be an educated person and what other people consider to be an educated person are wildly different. So there's no government standard for that. That is up to the parents, and the parents know how to take care of their kids, and they know the basic stuff they have to learn, and I would leave that trust to the parents, not to some government agency declaring you are now officially educated.
And what they do too, like we know a lot of schools like this that have 0% doing math and reading on grade level, and they have an 88% graduation rate. So someone's always going to be, fudging those statistics to make those schools look good.
Well, that's the wonderful thing about America. We're last in math and reading, but we're first in graduation.
It's true.
USA.
Janine, you were going to finish that thought?
About testing or?
Yeah.
No, I do think, I mean, once you trust someone to test beside, I mean, I don't know about you guys, we had 4 kids. You know the second you go to that back to school night in the first 10 minutes, or I know the first 5 minutes when I drive up to a school, what's going on, would I send my kids there? You look at the kids, you look at the safety. I mean, safety is the #1 factor that most parents in inner cities, that's what they look at for their kids. Do they have metal detector when they go into the school? That's very important to them. It's like they're not even looking at where the kids are going after the school. That's what their priorities are. It's so sad that that's what that's what they're looking at for schools. It should be, what does their child want to do? What's their interest? And nurture that interest if they want to act, if they want to go into sciences or math. I mean, and now with technology, you could do that so easily.
I was born in the Bronx, and in the Bronx right now, they spend $44,000 per kid, 44,000. There's 900,000 kids in New York City. They spend $40 billion. That's 44,000 a kid. If you're and I would leave you, I'd want to get this this statistic out there to show you the absurdity of the system. If you're a mother of 3 in the Bronx, you are going to receive $1.7 million of taxpayer money. About 45% from the state, 45% from the city, and about 10% from the federal government. So here's your check for $1.7 million.
That's $44,000 a year.
Times 13 years times 3. That's $1.7 million. Here's your $1.7 million check. Now, tax-free. Nice. You won the lottery. More than the lottery. Here's your $1.7 million. How in the world does that woman and those kids wind up in desperate poverty? Because the teachers union comes in, takes that $1.7 million, says you're going to this school. It's $44,000 a kid. Your kid is not going to learn anything, most likely. They'll be a 6th or 7th grader. If they're average, they will have no skills, no real path to success. And that woman was robbed of her $1.7 million. If we gave her $850,000 to educate her kid, $22,000 a year, she can go to great Catholic schools in New York City. There's great charter schools, there's great private schools. $22,000, even in New York City, buys a lot. And put that $850,000 in the bank account for her or for her kids, then there's no more poverty. And that is how bizarre the amount of money and the waste that happen. Okay? One rule change, the money follows the kids. Mamdani says he's going to shut down every charter school that he possibly can. He wants universal pre-K and child care. Well, if that mother who was getting $44,000 got to spend $10,000 a year on child care, she would have $10,000 left over. She can send her kid to child care, and there would be no extra, and she'd have the money to do it, and she wouldn't basically be poor anymore, and she'd still have $10,000. But the labor unions were not like that, so Mamdani will not do it, and he cannot think in any way for $44,000 a year. Is this really the best we can do? And that's how corrupt and dysfunctional the system is, and it's got to change.
And it's the only industry that's like that. I mean, back in the 60s and 70s, poor people had to go to housing projects. They were like the children are now. You must go to this school. You must stay in this neighborhood school. And they did Section 8 housing. They did housing vouchers. It freed up people to leave dangerous neighborhoods, to leave those towers that were burning down, that there was so much crime, and it gave them the freedom to live where they want to live. But they can't do that with education.
Okay, I think we have a little bit of time for a couple of questions. So, and maybe, Don, do you want to ask a question?
Don Sawyer, National Microscopic Center. Thanks for your leadership and generosity and voicing so much good. My question for you is, if you look at the founders leading microschools all across the country, really great innovative stuff. If there's one thing besides school choice that they say that they need to really proliferate, it's these antiquated regulatory frameworks that were designed not anticipating these highly innovative, exciting new things. And if you might offer any advice for how we can begin to so many of them are like using local regulations. How do we make that fundamental change to really allow this thing to proliferate and thrive?
Well, I would say, that's obviously a political problem. Like, why does the government. You know, if you go look at the history of it, up until about 1840, the government really had no role in education. And then Protestants, I hope there's no Protestants here.
You're in Boston. Boston.
It wasn't you, but your ancestors. You know, they didn't trust the Catholics to go to school. That they didn't think they could educate themselves. So that's where the government took control of the schools. Basically, it was basically anti-Catholic bigotry, and the government made all the regulations, and they were going to do it, and the taxpayer was going to pay for it. So if you wanted to do it yourself, you'd have to pay double, which is, you know, an outrageous, violation of separation of, of church and state. So that's where it comes from. That's the mentality. And that mentality, has lasted, it's hung in there for 200 years. That mentality has to be busted up. It's like, don't tell me how to educate my kid. You're telling me Congress is going to tell me how to educate those kids. The biggest knuckleheads on earth are going to tell me how to do it. I'll do it. There are no requirements, and I'll figure it out. And then maybe the test scores will go anywhere near what they were in 1835, when people can really read and write because the parents were involved. So that's a political problem. Those regulations got to go. And I think the hope is that as micro schools prove themselves so much better, that the political power will be there to say, just leave them alone. We trust the parents.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to go
from a Protestant.
I know one Protestant right back there, James Scholes.
It is true, I am a Protestant. But I'm curious about higher education and your views on higher education. What would you like to see? I'm at Florida State University. What would you like to see from universities to support the work that you're talking about here?
One of the things I said earlier to our host here, that I really admire the model that Harvard has, where he has merged schools of education and government together to study together and to figure out problems. A lot of schools keep this stuff in silos. The Department of Education, they're talking about training teachers. I studied city planning, which I think good schools is one great avenue to have good development in cities. But they never talk to each other. Or the Wharton School would have a separate class on urban finance. They're all operating in separate areas. So I think a model like that would be great to have in more colleges and universities.
My answer would be to get the government completely out of higher education, obviously. Check out the University of Austin at Texas. It's got 92 kids in there. This is our second year. There's 92 sophomores, 92 freshmen. They take zero government funds, and the school is free, except we ask the kids to pay back. So we're letting you go for free. Philanthropists pay for you, but you have a moral obligation to pay back. Now, you don't have to pay back when you're 22 and you're not making a lot of money. But when you get older, and hopefully you'll get wealthier, pay it back. And this would relieve the burden. The whole middle class of America is stressed out from the time you get your first, your baby is born. You're worrying about, how can I afford college? And college is a couple $100,000 because it is so bloated, and it is so, it has also doubled in price in the last 30 years. I would want to see a system where the government funds zero colleges, and the kids know, we're going to pay for you, but you have a moral obligation to pay back. This would free up the middle class. The parents don't have to worry about it. The kids know, hey, I'm going to have to pay this back. I better not waste my time here. And if I am, let me get out of here. It's not like some government agency is paying for my useless degree. I'm going to be paying for it ultimately on my civil society moral compass. And that is how I see the University of Austin in Texas busting up the government monopoly. And the real problem is the accreditation. The University of Austin at Texas is not accredited yet, because you have to have a graduating class before you can get accredited. So this is government, this is guild, this government monopoly that certifies schools. We got to get rid of that. and then you can open up schools, and you can, all the entrepreneurs could try, could try different things. But it's the accreditation that makes it a guild and makes it impossible for real entrepreneurship to occur. So hopefully University of Austin, Texas will shine the light that it can be done without the government and without any money, any pay, just kids who are morally obligated to pay, and we can free up the middle class. We do it very cheap. It doesn't have lacrosse fields and stuff, and water polo practice and stuff like that. So we do it cheap because we care about every nickel, and we hope that can show the world that it can be done much better without stressing out parents.
Okay, I'm sure we could keep going for some time, but I'd like to allow the Yasses to.
She had her arm up for the last 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, yes.
Hi, I'm sorry.
So we have a microphone?
She had her arm up like the whole time, so she has something. I don't know, it could be good.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh. Oh.
Arizona, our teachers union, they have no right to picket or anything, so everything you're saying about teachers unions, I would imagine doesn't apply to the, half the states in this room.
We should move there.
Well, so my question, to provide some context, in Arizona we have open enrollment. You can enroll in any district school that you want. We have very lax charter school laws, right? They can start wherever they want, whether there's demand or not. And students can move freely between those systems and homeschooling. And now with the introduction of universal vouchers in 2022, they can use vouchers for private school tuition, or homeschooling expenses. You continue to cite test scores as a reason that schools are failing, but I guess I would be interested in your thoughts. If, there's many schools in Arizona, district schools, that have waiting lists. There's many people in Arizona who choose the district school for their child. So this isn't a challenge. I'm just trying to bring, honesty to this conversation. Okay. Why is it okay when the accountability for ESAs is just parent choice, when you continue to cite test scores from public schools that voucher kids will never take because they exist outside the regulatory scheme? If the accountability is enough for district schools for you to have an opinion on how they're performing, why are you opposed to that accountability for voucher students?
I'll tell you, we're not. If you want to go to your district school, go.
Go.
If you
it's
like,
great if you choose the district
that's great.
school.
If you,
And you want the accountability.
yeah.
What accountability are you okay with
The
for a
parents
voucher
wanting to go there.
But, okay, I think I got my answer,
Okay.
which is none, right?
If the parents want to go, they can go.
So,
If
okay,
the, if
I
the,
got my answer.
if the parents want to go to a school where their kids are being tested and they want to have those test scores, that's great. And I think we would love if every public school was the first choice for parents. We wouldn't be here.
I'm not sure if I'm making my question clear. My question is, why is there, if you're saying it's the parent's choice, and that's the accountability for the voucher, why are you comfortable citing test scores for districts and saying they're failing, and then you say that vouchers are succeeding? What data other than parents choosing do you have to support that?
I would ultimately say I don't need any other data than the parents are choosing to go somewhere else.
Okay, well, on that note, I think it's time for dinner. Can we all give a big thanks to the Yasses?
Thank you. That was
Thank
fun.
you. You did it.